as a flawless crystal absorbs what is placed before it, like we saw with Gordon's example. As a flawless crystal absorbs the light, or absorbs what is placed before it, so the settled mind is transparent to whatever it meets. The seer, the process of seeing, or the object seen. This is samapatti, the state of mental absorption.
What means that? It's crystals, what it means?
A crystal? It's like a rock, like a quartz crystal.
Yeah,
So, a flawless crystal, like a diamond, that doesn't have any imperfections, will reflect light differently than a diamond that has the little imperfections in it.
Okay.
So it's like, he's saying, we ought to be like a flawless diamond and reflect the light of God back out into the world without our little imperfections and blockages. Unfortunately, we all have imperfections and blockages, and Gordon's analogy with the water was perfect, right? So we have all these rocks and pebbles, and it doesn't allow that downward spiral of God's energy to manifest in our lives because we have these blockages and these hindrances, obstacles, right? Obstacles that we just talked about. So the idea is to become like that flawless crystal. You know? And this mental absorption, samapatti, the settled mind is transparent to whatever it meets. You can read that and you can try and wrap your head around what would that be like, you know? And again, it's one of those things, samadhi, it's hard to put into words, it's hard to wrap your head around, to put a label on, to explain and express in our limited language. It's something that has to be experienced, and we talked about that yesterday. It's an experience, something that has to happen in your being for you to understand. And I shared a little bit of this with y'all, I think, before, but about 6 weeks ago or so, I had kind of a profound experience where I experienced this samapatti. And it's like really hard to explain and put into words, but essentially, I think I tried to write it down. It was, well, I entered into a state where I was doing a 6-day meditation retreat.
6 days.
Pretty much meditating all day for 6 days straight. With a little yoga in there, a little chanting, but mostly just meditating.
It's like Disneyland for Chris.
It was, yeah.
Was it silent, or was it?
No, it was our choice. We could talk if we wanted.
Okay.
I was about silent half the time. About the first couple days of the retreat, I didn't feel good. I had Crohn's disease, and I had a really bad flare-up. And I was really sick for like the first 2 days. But that happened for a reason, because for the remainder of the retreat, I essentially fasted. I was just eating rice and drinking water. That's all I had for 4 days, rice and water. And so I felt really light and just, anyway, I think that happened for a reason, so that I could kind of purge a lot of junk from my system and just eat really light. At any rate, so the second to the last day, during the second meditation, which was around 11 a.m. or something like that, I fell into the deepest samadhi that I've experienced. And even that was still a very low level, actually, of samadhi. But essentially, I got to such a place that things were no longer, after the meditation was through, people stood up and they walked out of the room because it was lunchtime. And so they were talking and giggling and things like that and walking out of the room. But it's like those things were happening, but they weren't happening. Chris was gone. Chris was nowhere to be found. So I was in touch with a sense of a larger I. Not the I that is Chris, but a larger sense of self, or I, that encompassed everything. And these things, there were sounds around this presence, but they weren't happening around it. They were happening in it. So that I realized I was the sounds that I was hearing. There was no separation between me and the sounds that were going on, or anything that was happening. They were happening in me, not around me. I was that. And so I laid on the floor for about, I don't really know how long, 30 minutes, an hour, something like that, just bathed in bliss, couldn't move, couldn't talk. People came up to talk to me, and I couldn't formulate a sentence, so I just said, basically leave me the hell alone, let me be. And then I got up finally, and my spine was shaking. I was having Kundalini stuff going on. We could talk about that later, but anyway, I finally went outside, walked into the woods, just kind of in a trance, and just sat and essentially just stared at a tree for about an hour or something. I think I got up and walked again to another spot where there's a nice mountain view up there where we were. I was staring at the mountains. This whole thing lasted for about 2 or 3 hours, I think. I don't remember all of it, but I remember enough of it. And the thing that brought me out of it was I had a thought that I wanted to go share this with people. Like I wanted other people to experience what I was experiencing. So I had this thought, I should stand up and I should go and rush and tell people what's going on with me and share this energy, that was happening. And then I started thinking, how would people react to that? What would people think if I just ran up and just wanted to share this with? And so I started having these thoughts and doubts, and ego stuff started creeping in, and it was over. That was it. It was over, just like that. And I got up, and there was some residue, things that it lasted, but most of the experience was, and actually that residue is still here. And that's what I want to talk about. You can have these experiences, and Graham, the leader of the retreat, he told us, you will condense about 3 months worth of spiritual practice into the 6-day period. You will accomplish in 6 days what it would normally take you meditating once a day or whatever to accomplish in 3 months. And Graham has a tendency to embellish and exaggerate a little. So I just thought that was Graham, and it probably was, but he was right, So you can, these practices are so powerful and full of potentialities for you, but, and when you have one that's that powerful, they call it a breakthrough. It's like it stays with you. That one experience that I had was so transformational that it changed my the way I experienced the world. The way I experience the world is now different because of that one experience. And I'd had other little samadhi experience. You will start to experience samadhi. If you keep up with the meditation, you do it every day like we're asking, you'll start to experience that samadhi in that 5 minutes where you're just sitting. Even during the mantra you might. And you'll start to experience it. But this was different. This was what the sages speak of. This is what the gurus write about. This is what I'd always heard, what samadhi was like. And I experienced, again, sort of a low level. There are much higher levels than what I was able to experience. But it's that 1 3-hour-long, whatever it was, now I close my eyes,
and you go there.
I just go there. Whereas before it would take me 45 minutes of using a mantra, breath work, meditation, stringent practice to get to that same spot. Now I close my eyes, I can say a mantra for a minute, and I'm there, just like that, And that's because of one experience.
So that
And maybe the culmination of all my experiences and training leading up to that point. But the point I want to make with this is most people would think you would have an experience like that and it would want to make you meditate more. Right? It actually had the opposite effect on me. I got into such a detached state that it was scary. Scary. Because you get to a place where you understand you are infinite and that all this finite stuff is just fleeting and permanent and non-essential for the most part. So that was scary for me. And so I actually took it down a notch. I stopped meditating less, okay? Because you have to understand, if I sit and I really meditate for 45 minutes, I'm gone. That's it. You know, it's like, and so I have to stay grounded. And I've done certain things in my life to do that, which might be, you know, non-traditional.
Rollerblading.
Certain rollerblading, longboarding, you know, yard work, little things
To stay grounded.
to stay grounded,
Yeah.
you know? And we all have to do that.
Well, I mean,
And Azu could probably tell you how he stays
Yeah.
grounded. And we could all go around and talk about how we stay grounded. And it's going to be different for every person. You know, because when you have these profound spiritual experiences, they can frighten you because you become so detached. What next? That kind of thing. So it's like you have to stay rooted, grounded, firmly on earth. And actually, it's funny, since I started meditating a little less and being out in the world more, I'm actually socializing more, hanging out with people more, and things like that, I feel like a new man. And it was from that one experience. One experience. And so this is going to manifest in everyone's lives differently. You might have a samadhi, and you might rush off to India and live in an ashram and meditate for the rest of your life and just say, this is... Or you can have the opposite effect. You can have a rebound effect on you where you say, wait a minute, am I ready to just dissolve? No. You know, I have a wife that I love, beautiful wife. You know, I'm going back to school, I'm starting a new career, you know, I have this yoga path and doing this teacher training. And so it's like, no, I want all these things. I want to embrace all these things. I don't want to be detached completely from them. So you find that balance and you find that level of where you're comfortable. And it's going to be different for every single person. Every single person. So it's finding that balance. Now, for you all, this is a 3-month experiment, and I've explained this before. Meditate twice a day. Do the pranayama. Go for it. Get where you want to go. Get there. And then reintegrate that back into your life and see how it fits into your life. But this is a 3-month experiment for you to go. Take it as far as you want to take it. Let go. Surrender to the process. Go as high as you want to go, but then when the training's over, you decide. Each one of you individually decides, this is how my spiritual practice is going to look in my life. This is how I'm going to fit it in. This is how much time I'm going to spend to find my balance. Because again, it's different for everyone, right? So I'm just going to go through this kind of quickly. 42, the first stage of absorption is when the object of attention is gross, and its name and other thoughts are mingled together in the mind. So you can still be having mental activity and being samadhi. We talked about that. The second stage is when the memory is purified and the mind is quiet enough to be absorbed in the object of attention. In the same way, the third and fourth stages of absorption are explained. These occur when the object of attention is subtle. Verse 45.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah, sure.
When sometimes, if you have a subject or something you want to go deep, could be a concept with words. I don't know what I want to do in life, or about a sutra, or about something that you want to go deeper, and you brought that in the meditation. Is that's one question. You brought those things to meditation.
Yeah.
Is that a thought that you need? It's getting there, or how you make that part of the meditation and not part of the distractions. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Totally. So that's called contemplative meditation, and it's a totally legitimate form of meditation. But you want to separate it from your normal practice. Do your normal practice, try to get to that thought-free, okay? Then you can do a contemplative meditation where you meditate and you ask at the beginning of your meditation, you can even use it as a mantra, you can keep asking it over and over. What am I? That's a great one. What am I? What am I? What do I want to do with my life? What are my gifts? What is the meaning of life? What is God? And you ask it over and over again, but at some point stop and wait for the answer. You may not get it that day. You may not get it that year, but you'll get it. And actually more often than not, you do get it while you're meditating. It's profound. Start experimenting with it.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting the way it works. Again, you don't always get an answer.
Repeat.
Totally.
Yeah.
But eventually stop and just wait for the answer in the silence. But sometimes the answer is not what you want it to be or what you think it is. It might be something totally different. It works. Try it. But again, separate that from your normal practice. Does that make sense?
The more that you do that, what happens is that the answers become, not necessarily come to you quicker, usually quicker, but the more reliable the answers are, I've noticed, that come to you when they come. If you ask God for advice on something, how to handle a situation, a particular problem, or for strength, or conflict. A lot of times with me, it's a certain conflict. I'm having trouble deciding how I want to go or what path I need to take. I have to confront somebody, or if I have to confront a customer, I'll get into meditation. I like to use the mantra, let go, let go, let go. And then I sit, and then I pray. And the more that I do this on a regular basis, the more enlivened my consciousness is with the information I need to make the decision I need to make, honestly.
Sometimes all you need to do is meditate. You don't even need to ask anything. Sometimes you do need to ask and wait. So just experiment with it in your life. You'll see results.
It's
unbelievable.
unbelievable. It's really cool.
Yeah.
It happened to you too? It happened to all of you?
Mm-hmm. No.
Experiment with that in your spare time, But again, separate it from your normal practice. But try that. Just ask yourself a question. Let it be like a self-manifesting mantra. And then let go, and then wait in the silence for the answer. It might not be in words. It might be a feeling. Or an emotion that rises up, or a vision.
Yeah, its experiences are different for everyone. So I think everyone has a different situation in terms of experiencing that, state. I have maybe different experience myself, more of a feeling kind of thing with me. But it's it's different. So you just don't think it's gonna be one way, right? Just be open to whatever. Yeah.
Cool. So 45, the range of subtle objects includes all the levels of creation extending to the limit of the gunas. We talked about the 3 gunas already. These levels of samadhi are concerned only with external objects. But on refinement of the 4th stage of absorption, there is the dawning of the spiritual light of the self. This level is ritambara, where consciousness perceives only the truth. So that's the highest level of samadhi, where your consciousness perceives only truth. Okay? 49. The knowledge gained through ritambara is qualitatively different from that gained in the usual way through testimony and inference. Again, this realization, that I'm just using myself as an example because that's all I can speak on. The realization I had, or the samadhi experience I had, was qualitatively different than any knowledge I could gain from reading a book or listening to somebody talk that's knowledgeable, listening to a guru or a teacher. That's great, you can learn a lot that way. But you learn so much more when you experience these things than you do when you talk about them or try to learn about them from someone else. That's why a guru is great. But can a guru actually take you to enlightenment or take you to samadhi? No, you have to do the work on your own. So, don't be a believer. Be a knower. There's a huge difference. Don't believe something. Don't believe anything I tell you, for God's sakes. Be a knower.
Or if you're going to believe in anything, believe in yourself.
I gotta say something.
Believe in your truth
Your own.
and be a knower. Know. Beyond the shadow of a doubt.
I have learned so much just learning to become comfortable with solitude in my own energy and not over socializing, spending time alone, spending time in the woods, spending time at the river by myself, being as meditative as possible. I have a little bit of a hard time getting to a higher state because it's hard for me to sit still and my lower back hurts, but I do the best I can. But I have learned so much just by paying attention to the creation. I've been able to figure it out because a lot of that is already in our DNA. The information in this book helps to reactivate
That's right.
a lot of what we already know.
It's just a catalyst, right?
Yes.
It catalyzes the processes in you that are latent. All the knowledge, this is, you already know all this. It's like the first time, think about the first time you picked up and read some good metaphysical literature. I mean, good stuff, not frou-frou. I mean, good quality stuff. You picked it up, you read it, and something just resonated inside you. Why? Because your heart knew that it was truth and that you were relearning something. It's a remembering. Reading this, studying this stuff, we're not learning this for the first time. We already know all this. It's a remembering. We're remembering it. Okay? The end of verse 49. The former means is intuitive and sees things as they are in their totality, whereas the latter means is partial. The impression born of Ritambhara prevents the accumulation of further latent impressions. Samadhi prevents karmic buildup. We'll talk about that in just a second.
Which number you are? I'm lost.
50, verse 50. The impression born of Ritambhara prevents the accumulation of further latent impressions. Latent impressions is karma, samskaras. 51. And when even the latent impression of Ritambhara has been brought to a settled state, then all activity ceases. In Nirbija Samadhi, the unbounded consciousness of the self alone remains. So that's, I guess, Nirbija Samadhi is the highest attainment, even when Ritambhara has been transcended. Okay? So let's talk about karma just for a second. We all have a different understanding of what karma is, but essentially, we all have different karma, okay? We'll call them subconscious tendencies. We can call them programs.
Contract.
Well, I don't know if it's a contract or not because you can break it. Break the contract. So karma, your subconscious tendencies. The things in you that elicit your reactions to situations, how you handle situations. Okay. Samskaras. Samskaras are karmic seeds. Okay? We all have samskaras. Somebody says something to you you don't like, you react with anger. Okay? That's because you have within you a seed of anger. Something happens and you get afraid. It's because you have a karmic seed. You have a samskara of fear in you. These samskaras are the cause of all suffering. Okay. Cause of attachment and suffering. Now these seeds, these karmic seeds, okay, they can only grow, be fertilized, be nourished in an ego field. Karmic seeds have nowhere to take root in the field pure consciousness. PC just means pure consciousness. So these karmic seeds only grow in your personality self. They have nowhere to take root. They have nowhere to grow. They have nothing to nourish them in the state of pure consciousness. When you're in a state of pure consciousness,
Pre-consciousness.
Pure.
Pure.
Yeah, pure consciousness. So when you're in that state, these karmic seeds, these samskaras, they can't take root. They have nothing to latch onto. They have to. They're physical, and they must latch onto something physical. Okay, your personality. Okay, when you're in a samadhi state, where's your personality? I don't know. I don't know where it goes, but it's not there. And so these karmic seeds, they have nowhere to root down. They have nothing to grab onto, nothing to latch onto, nowhere, no field to be planted in. There's no field. So again, from yesterday, how does Patanjali tell you to end suffering? Okay, he spelled it out. To end suffering. Somebody remember what his solution was? Daily what?
Daily meditation.
Meditation.
Daily meditation.
Now, does everybody have the same karmic seeds, or is it
No.
different for
Oh
everybody?
no. Everyone no.
Okay, I mean, it's not like latent in
Thank you for
everybody.
listening.
Well, there's some things that are probably latent in everyone.
Yeah.
But no, we all have our particular
Okay.
unique set that makes us unique and fun.
So we nourish it, we plant it, we nourish it.
We nourish it, we give it
Yeah.
sunlight,
Yeah.
we give it water to grow. Every time you get angry, you're watering your karmic seeds. Every time you get afraid, you're watering your karmic seeds. Every time, you react emotionally to a situation and you're not in control, you're watering your karmic seeds. You're giving them life, you're giving them sunlight, nourishment, everything they want. You're feeding your pain body. Okay? Pain body is hungry.
So
It's like the Cookie Monster.
The reason why it's the end suffering daily meditation, because then you reach this pure consciousness, which means it's non-physical, so it's really pure spirit, or whatever you want to call it. So they cannot hold there.
That's right.
So if you keep meditating in the day of the rest of the day, you will be in that state.
I wish.
But then why is the solution daily meditation?
After a while, remember, repeated, and he uses that word all the time, repeatedly. If you do this repeatedly, meaning daily, over time, and remember it says in there, yoga takes a long time to perfect, right? So if you repeat, if you get here every day, for the first couple months it might not make a difference. Over the years, if you cultivate that pure consciousness, that God energy, divinity in you every day, when you meditate in the morning, suddenly that state lasts a little longer. It goes a little longer into your day. So right now you might meditate and you might get into like a low level kind of samadhi and you might feel pretty good for 10 minutes and then the phone rings and somebody yells at you for something and it's done, right? 10 years from now you keep this up, that phone's going to ring, you're probably going to keep meditating, you probably won't even care, and that state will take you through the whole day. That's the idea. And I can see this with people that have been meditating for very long periods of time. They're super calm, relaxed people, really have their thing together, So I think the longer you do this, the more practice you get. It takes practice, tons. It's the hardest. Meditation's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Period. Harder than learning how to play guitar, harder than learning B-series sun salutation, harder than being a school teacher for 6 years in public middle school, harder than that. It's hard. And that's okay. It's supposed to be. If it were easy, we'd all be right at one with God all the time. It's a practice. It takes a long time. Don't expect huge results immediately. You'll have them, and you already are. But again, it's a cumulative effect over long periods of time. Does that make sense? So the idea is to get a little of this, a little taste of this each day, carry that into your life, and the longer you do it, the more you do it, the easier it becomes to root these out, root them up, throw them away. They're not doing you any good. Right? Hang out here. Okay? When I'm hanging out in Chris all the time, I'm just feeding these little guys, man. They're loving life. When I'm hanging out here, man, they get pretty agitated at me, and they'll do things to trick me and to get me back into Chris. So be mindful of those little tricks, because you've already told me, right? Yeah, he's tricky. So hang out here as much as you can. Bring it into your daily life, and it will ease your suffering, because again, you realize you're infinite. Once you realize you're infinite, anything can happen to you, and it's like you might react, and there might be emotions and stuff, but there's this little underlying something underneath that never really gets affected. And that's awful nice. That brings a lot of peace to your life. So, again, everybody understand concepts, karma, samskaras? And again, the theory is that you accumulate this from all your past lives. You bring all this stuff with you into this life that you've taken with you through previous lives, and so on and so forth. And so life essentially is the process of getting rid of this and hanging out here. That's it. Cool.